Hi everyone, Woniya here, and I've done a series of videos talking about my physical preparations for Alone and then how those ended up going up until launch time. And so now I'm putting out a series of videos with follow-ups to that, how my body did out there, how my recovery was, how all of those physical preparations I did really served me out there. So I'm getting that edited to put out soon, but just to give you a little teaser and give you something to keep you occupied before that, I want to put out this piece that I recorded that's just a little bit about my process and my recognizing what was happening in my body just for those last few days before choosing to leave. So check that out and be looking for my three-part series on my body in the Alone Season 6 experience. Thanks everyone. As time went on, I began to be a little bit more aware, certainly, of the weight I was losing. I had brought a pair of thigh-high wool socks as one of my pairs of socks, and early on I had realized that it was impossible to pull those out from under my layers of clothes to dry them by the fire, so I had cut off the feet and was wearing them as leg warmers. And early on, I was pulling them up to, my knees or so, and then over time I could pull them further and further up my thighs. And by the end, I could pull them all the way up and they would just slump down because there was nothing for them to grip. In the last week or two while I was out there, I was like, what? There's something weird happening inside my pants. I had all of my underlayers tucked inside, but I was feeling this weird thing. And I was like, what is that? Like, what is this weird bunching I'm feeling in my pants? Well, finally I figured out it was my underwear, because my underwear was not touching my body anywhere but my hips. It was just dangling from my hips and bunching up inside my pants. That is how skinny I was. That is how much weight I had lost by those last couple weeks. Just nothing to me. They don't focus on it because they're trying to throw attention to Jordan's challenges and my successes at the end so that you don't know that he is kicking my butt in terms of calories out there. He had hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times more food, more fat, more calories than I did. And they don't emphasize that so that it seems like we're neck and neck. But I had lost 50 pounds at that point. 50 pounds, and I am a small woman. I am 5'4". My average weight is around 130. 50 pounds was well over 33% of my body mass. That is tremendous weight loss. And they were very concerned about me for some time, and I didn't get why they were so worried. It wasn't until the very, very end, so that time period between day 70 and day 73, first I had that epiphany about maybe the thing I needed to give myself for my birthday was food, was self-care and prioritizing my body over everything. It took me a while to actually build myself up to it because I didn't want to go. You saw how emotional I was just about the idea of leaving. I had never wanted to be in a place more in my entire life. I wanted to stay, but I wasn't willing to sacrifice my body, and I was finally able to see that that's what was happening. And part of why was that I wasn't getting weak. I still felt totally functional. I was able to walk my trap line, able to bring in plenty of firewood, able to bring water in and snow and melt it into water, like able to do everything I need to, but it was getting harder and harder to motivate. It was getting harder to make myself get up and get started. That felt like a real shift. You might be able to tell I'm a pretty darn motivated person, and I really noticed the difference. The other thing is that I was starting to be a little bit less reverent and prayerful. I was having a harder time singing the sundown, and in fact I was skipping some days at the very end there. That had never happened. I wasn't in that full gratitude, love, connection place as much. I was still there, but it was a little bit less attainable for me, and that was a big shift. And also, I just let go of my dance party. By the very last week out there, I just didn't dance. And that was a big deal because those were huge for me and really important. And my whole attitude going in was, I'm going out there to live and to thrive, and I do not want a suffering contest or a starvation contest. I knew that that is what had often been in the show before, but that's not where I was coming from. I'm coming from these as sustainable life ways, and if it wasn't sustainable, and I wasn't having fun, and I wasn't feeling connected, and I wasn't really putting my skills to the test, and I wasn't joyful enough and in love with life enough to be singing and dancing, I didn't want to be out there. And that was starting to happen. And I still didn't want to go. I still wanted to push it and stay there. But my epiphany was, this isn't what you said you would do. That staying past that point, that wouldn't be in line with your values. And you're out here partly to be an example and an inspiration to folks. Now that you've got the eyes of millions on you, is now the time to choose something different, to sacrifice your body and what's most important to yourself? No, you can't do that. You know, that was huge. So that's all going to be addressed again in my other video, but that's where I was at. And it was at that point that I chose to leave on day 73, which was my 43rd birthday, which was rather auspicious because I had this whole thing about prime numbers while I was out there. Like, prime number days, always something cool and magical would happen. They were a special day. And knowing that it was both my 43rd birthday, which is a prime number, and on day 73, I was like, oh, well, there you have it. It's time. And my body says it's time. That deep knowing that I was still okay, but it probably wasn't very much longer before I was not okay. So I had no idea I was that skinny. I knew I was skinny, and I was starting to grasp how very desperately skinny I was. But when I looked at my face in the mirror for the first time after they pulled me out, I was so shocked. I was so blown away. I barely recognized myself. I was skeletal. What seemed to me like skeletal, you know, probably not to folks who don't know me, because there are a lot of slender people out there, but I'm someone who's used to being, you know, muscly and round and having meat on my bones. That's my normal build. And that is not what I saw looking in the mirror back at me. 50 pounds. My cheeks were sunken in, my eyes were in pits, my head looked enormous in proportion to my body. I was super filthy, like dark gray skin from all of the soot from the fire, but I was looking really haggard. And my God, from the moment I saw myself in the mirror, I said, wow, never will I regret my choice to have gone. I am so, so glad that I left when I did. And that remains absolutely true to this day. Overall, I feel better off physically for having gone through what I went through. And what I mean by that is I have a deeper understanding of my body's capacity than ever before. Yes, I stressed the heck out of this body, but this body rocked it out there. Are you kidding me? I went 73 days by myself in the Arctic on 100th of what Jordan was living off of out there. Way smaller bodied person than any of the last 4 people out there. I mean, Jordan, Nathan, Barry, and myself, I am teensy compared to those men. I brought out way less reserves packed onto my frame than they did. Even Jordan, who's a skinny guy, he had at least 30 extra pounds on him going in. So the things that this body was able to achieve with its size and the amount of calories I was bringing in were extraordinary. I feel so empowered. So that's one thing, is I feel stronger and more capable and more vital than ever before. I always knew that I was strong and capable, but I have never had a test like that. It was amazing. Also, I just feel more in touch with what food really is and how much I actually need. And I know Larry Roberts has spoken to this before as well, but I'm more able to go on less food now than ever before because I get what it actually means, right? I get the amount of energy that is in food in a whole different way. It's not uncommon for me. Well, I'm back to intermittent fasting, but it's not uncommon for me to go until like 2 in the afternoon and not have it be that big a deal, because I know I'm perfectly capable of that. And I feel like my body is more able to give with what I put into it than before, because it's been practiced too. So it's part psychologically knowing, and partly my body gets how to do that. That said, I will say that I am carrying a little bit more weight regularly than I did before going out, and I feel fine with that. That feels, it makes perfect sense that that is what my body needs to feel safe now after what it's been through, and I feel great with it. I feel healthy and strong and vital, and like I've got some reserves, and I can handle so much. Again, I always knew that about myself, but whoa. I have really proved it to myself in such a deeper way than I ever would have dreamed of. Another thing that I have now is feeling so in touch with all of my human ancestors. We have this idea that it's such a big deal and such a hardship to starve for a long time, but up until very recently, that is what it was to be a human. Famine was a regular occurrence. Most people had lean times in the late spring up until the land was producing again, up until the sun came back and the plants were starting to flower and do their thing and animals were coming out of hibernation. Most people knew what it was to starve. I don't think that it's as horrible a thing for us physically as our culture would have us believe, because we have this culture that is not into deprivation from food. Most people's damage is from way too much food, not from too little food. I think that occasionally cleaning out the system, using all of the reserves and starting over, it's like a spring cleaning for your body. I feel like, well, here's another thing, is that most of the toxins in our environment today are fat-soluble toxins. I just did a huge detox. Overall, I think I am better off physically, mentally, emotionally, and in every other way for the extremity of my circumstances out on alone. Thank you all, and thank you for your interest and watching my journey. And this story isn't over, friends. I still have so much to share about it and more ways that I want to do that with you. So thank you for your curiosity about my journey out there and all of the other things that I do, which are substantial. And I'm so excited to have this platform now to share more of what I do with you. So on to the future, friends. You'll be seeing more of me. Thank you.